Hello YouTube, this is Ben Gessel. How's it going? Not really sure where I'm going to go with this video, or if I'm going to make this even a public or private video quite yet. But I think it's important to try to mention some things that are on my mind. And I might cover a lot of different subjects, so I do apologize. It seems a little bit less organized than some of my other videos. But I think a lot of what I'm going to say you will pick up on. You should. And if you don't pick up, if you don't understand really what it is I'm trying to say, it might make more sense if you think about it a bit more. So maybe I might have mentioned some things in other videos. I can't remember offhand about dating. And there are websites and there are things, blogs that talk about how it's a little bit harder to, it can be harder to find someone to marry if you are more intelligent, or if you're more imaginative, or et cetera, all these descriptions and adjectives that seem to kind of do, to some extent, they kind of describe someone somewhat, but never fully. The thing is that I've always been very open to getting to know people as a general rule, and I have a really hard time knowing what to say to different people a lot of times, because what I would like to say, I don't always say it, or I don't know the words, and that's often sentiments that aren't necessarily romantic, or I'm unsure. Not necessarily even in regards to someone's character. I'm just unsure how I feel about someone sometimes. Or I might be sympathetic or very, we'll say, sexually attracted to a woman, right? Or I might feel some other positive emotion, but it might not be real love. And complicating all these things, of course, aside from mild Asperger's syndrome, is all the little things that I look for in someone's musical tastes and things. But that's not really what I wanted to talk about in this video. I've been, reading about behaviors among many young women, the millennial and more Generation Z, but the Generation Z thing, of course, it's a little bit different ballpark because it's generally not really, Anyway, many more millennials, I suppose. So it's kind of, these things that I've noticed somewhat when I was younger, even maybe just a little bit, that have become more apparent about many young women in the United States. And specifically, I guess you could say, Seattleites, West Coast. I imagine a lot of the same things would apply to California, just as much as they would apply to Washington, if not more so. So it might sound like I'm venting. I apologize in advance, but I knew this when I was in my teens. I have absolutely nothing to do. I want nothing to do with any young woman. Well, I'm going to say this even this way. Not even outside of dating. I don't want nothing to do with anyone who acts like a over-caffeinated, entitled, bratty. I'm not even going to use yuppie because there's probably some great yuppie people out there, but you know what kind of person I'm talking about. But I'm assuming at this point, over-caffeinated, entitled, stuck up, immature, money grubbing woman. That kind of person, you should be not even someone I even spend a second time thinking about. But I despise this kind of young woman so much. Naturally, I mean, there are other types that I dislike as well, obviously, but it's so infuriating to think of the kind of to even see, even briefly, the kind of person that has gobs of money, or at least pretends to have gobs of money, and they seem to kind of base their morality around very liberal ideas that I'm surrounded by in Western Washington. And yeah. And some things just bother me more than other things. I try not to think about it, but they do. I, of course, have rarely experienced. Actually, not really. This kind of young woman, I think, is a bit more common in Seattle itself. So if I hear about folks that say, "Hey, you should live in Seattle because," oh, there's a website that says if you're a INFP person, introverted, intuitive, feeling, perceiving, that you should live in Seattle. Well, okay, but how does that very sensitive person that lives in Seattle, and I'm sure there's probably some others that are like that in Seattle, how does that person feel about that kind of over-caffeinated, coffee-drinking, crazy woman that makes a stink at Starbucks, and, as mentioned probably in previous videos, loves to be on Yelp half a day, just, or off and on, or some other such activity. How does that, how would that person feel? It's that sensitive person that doesn't, it has a completely different value system. How would that person feel about that kind of young woman? And of course, the broader question is, why is it that I keep running into so many idiots, particularly women? There's a lot of guys who are idiots. It's just that, well, I guess you could say for quite some time, I just have spent less time with people in general outside of my teaching. And that's just the honest, brutal truth. It takes a lot of energy out of someone to have to deal with a lot of things that you would rather not deal with people that you don't really care for. And vast majority of people in this world, it's kind of a so-so to nah, not really. And that's always been the way it's been ever since I can remember, outside of my own family and maybe a few other people. If you really come right down to it, that's, I mean, believe me, I've tried my darndest. So, where is this video going? Right. Well, you can at any time, of course, stop watching or keep watching. It's up to you. But yeah, there's lots of similar kinds of videos and things out there that touch on all these things I'm talking about. But for some reason, they always leave some of you guys high and dry, don't they? Maybe I mentioned some of these things before, some of the videos, but why is it that we feel like there's something that's just not really meeting what we are looking for in a YouTube video in this regard? Well, obviously it has something to do with just wanting a real relationship to begin with. But that's not something that is forced on us, or not something that someone else thinks is right for us. It's got to be, we've got to know inside that it feels right. Sometimes it's one's own character that gets in the way, but when you're with a real kindred spirit. And on occasion, sometimes you might shy away from someone who's kindred spirit just because maybe you wonder if they're just not really as passionate about some things as you are. There are all kinds of reasons why you could think that way, but I've never really been fully content to just marry someone who's going to be a great mom. But that's a big part of what I'm looking for, of course. But I've never liked it when fellow Mormons will say, "I'm looking for someone that's going to make a great mom." Why would I dislike that? Because it's something I'm looking for, obviously. Because it sounds like something that you would say to please someone else in a church setting. But it's still true. The qualities that make a good mom are often the qualities that make for a very attractive person you want to marry. You certainly don't want to marry someone who would treat their kids poorly. And so that eliminates far more people than just your over-caffeinated persnickety types of women. I don't even want to say high maintenance. I've been referred to, by the way, before as being high maintenance. I took it as a compliment because, or it's a little bit insightful because I'm not a lumberjack. So I'm not a factory worker. I'm not a mechanic. Not a farmer. I might have those qualities in a way sometimes, but my dad grew up on a farm. But yeah, it's just the way I am. It's not boasting at all. I don't think in a pragmatic or I just don't think like other guys. So, most of the peers that I'll have, most of the friends I'll have after this life will probably be people that have lived other times, and they've been, some of them have been poor artists that have struggled their entire lives to make ends meet. Others will probably be very famous. Other people nobody will ever know about because they died poor. And other people that are not necessarily of the artistic bend, but yeah, probably most of them somewhat that way. Or maybe perhaps you're a creative scientist. Getting back to the train of thought here. Yeah, I mean, it's something where I've had all these thoughts about over time about how I would like to have things be different in regards to dating in my church and in the world in general. I'd rather not pay money for those things to be some things that might be a good idea. I'd rather not pay money for these kinds of things. Who knows? I recently canceled my Netflix subscription. I cancel other things to make way for some other things that might come online that cost money. But I can watch movies on YouTube. I'm not really sure, honestly, I'm not really sure what I would say if I ran across someone who really rubbed me the wrong way. And it could be someone who had a different personality somewhat even when I was describing. I just know that at this point in the game, my life, why hold back? If the situation would call for some directness. And most situations don't really. But, I mean, am I that kind of person who would store up all this angst and then an Adam Sandler-esque explode on someone? I hope not. Maybe that's one of the reasons why it's great to do these kinds of YouTube videos, because maybe you can get some of these feelings out a little bit more rationally. Because, honestly, I'll be honest, most of my friends, most people I know are often not in the mood to hear all these things, even my own family. Even my own family. So, it's also, interesting to see people make these snap judgments about people that have sometimes emotional issues that kind of build up over time that might have some relation to some of these things that I have. It's interesting to see these snap judgments of what the heck, when someone explodes, in real life for something. And that's, we're human beings. That's one of the things that could happen. I'm not saying it would never happen. It could happen. I should have that composure, though, to refrain from anything aggressive, certainly physically. But if it's an adult, if it's someone who is a little bit more along where I am in life, maturity-wise and everything, and intellectually, if it's someone that pushes all the buttons, right? Well, I might say, excuse me, I'm just going to go sit over here, kind of thing. I might say it in a way that's sometimes a bit direct because of all these experiences I've had. But probably wouldn't raise my voice initially. Or, if I met some crazy person that was really out of sorts, it might be easier to handle that kind of person, knowing that they're probably trying to unload emotionally on me, rather than the person that has no, we'll say, so it's a different kind of humility when someone emotionally unloads on you and doesn't mean to, because that person is trying to unburden themselves emotionally and spiritually. It might not be the right situation, might not be the right person I'm talking to, but you can sense that certain kind of humility. And it's a different situation when you come across someone who is not humble and again, it's pushing all those buttons, right? So I'm singling out women. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe again, should change subjects here. But it just so happens that there's a lot of young women that in the United States that they're I'm going to put it this way. No matter how attractive a woman is, young woman, they can never change their character or their maturity, or they can say all these things, but what really sticks? The only things that really stick are maybe things that maybe we've heard before that might seem hurtful, but semi-true. But once you realize, for all those guys out there that have, I think that you know what I'm talking about. So I'm speaking more to guys here, perhaps in a way. But if you think about some young women and where they're at in life, no matter what experiences you've had with women or what you're having with women right now, most of the time you should be able to, if you think about it enough, sometimes you don't want to, but if you think about it enough, and this is why a lot of times people drink alcohol, because trying to soothe the raging beast inside. I understand, but most times come to some conclusion that a woman didn't really see you for who you really were. But if she did, by all means, probably a good idea to try to improve your life a little bit. But I don't really know many guys that are that disreputable. Most guys I know are pretty cool, single or whatever. But so yeah, I mean, a lot of idiots out there that are even getting, sadly, pretty old. Sometimes, when I say idiots, what I'm referring to are women that simply just don't understand certain guys very well. I think they do, but they don't. And yeah, I'm familiar with the behaviors of many millennials, many, and we'll say the Generation Z crowd, that women that tend to follow suit sometimes in some respects with defensive behaviors and words and actions toward guys that are they think are interested in them, or they're uncomfortable with them, or whatever, or that it just the interest is not mutual. So there's words you hear like stalking and creeper and you know where it's coming from. Where it's coming from is probably from a woman who is not very mature, not very experienced in life. And by experience, I don't necessarily mean something sexual. I certainly don't mean that necessarily, but I mean someone who is probably not the person really that you would want to spend more time with. Unfortunately, we seem to be having fewer numbers of young women that, I mean, certainly, yeah, in the urban areas, and I could go on as this type of person, but we seem to have like fewer numbers of women at a certain age that kind of have a keen, sharp eye about things, a good head on their shoulders. There are fewer numbers of young women that seem to just get young men of certain personalities. Or if they do, it's kind of the same old thing where you're odd, eccentric, sometimes a little bit off-smelling guys that are actually pretty good guys really are just not seen as being very attractive. Not necessarily the ugliest guys in the world, not necessarily the least desirable. There are certainly many other guys that would be probably less desirable than these folks. I'm not just talking about the disability thing here. I'm talking about, I guess I'm just talking about laws of attraction and the way life is. Some things do seem to be kind of the same from generation to generation, but there's a lot of vanity that seems to be very present, and I'm going to say it's both sexes, of course, but I'm just focusing on females here. So, oh yeah, it's not easy to mention these things. At the same time, it's healthy to mention these things in this way, and I think it is. It's better to mention these things in this way than to take out my emotions, in this case, on a unsuspecting young woman who just happens to say all the wrong things, who have no interest in dating anyway. It's better to mention these things in this venue than in real life explode them somewhat, and then you're faced with the people cell phoning you and embarrassing you online without your permission. I think I'd rather mention these things here than have that happen. A lot of people do not respect the humanity of people in general. They don't. And if they're young enough, it's easy to forgive them. It should be easier for many men, I think. Can't say it's very easy if you're in your late teens or the 20s, perhaps. So that whole thing is so new, to many guys, or it's just you don't know how to handle it, right? Sometimes the deepest emotional scars and spiritual scars come from things like bad dating experiences, or unfulfilled dating experiences, or sexual relations in some respects. things that don't work out toward marriage or having a family, basically. And, you know, breaking up, divorces, you know, just keep going. And misunderstandings, bullies when you're younger, of course, but anytime you're misunderstood by people. Some of these things, I think, are pretty universally understood that these things get deep. They go deep. They go really deep. They go so deep that some people do go berserk, or some people do things that we don't understand why they do them, but they do them. Now, even in the videos that I saw tonight, and I was watching... Okay, I was watching videos that were... people were getting angry, and businesses and things. And the reason I watch those videos, other than the entertainment value, of course, is because, you know, it's kind of a study in human behavior. It's a study, you think about, well, why, what was really going on here? Because we don't always know what's going on in some of these compilation videos, right? And again, I apologize if I mentioned this before. I feel like maybe I've mentioned these things before, but maybe I haven't in this way. But you start wondering, you start thinking about these videos from the Hispanic mom that's just trying to say things in English, but you hear her humanity, and you hear that she's essentially a good person, but she's so upset with this guy who keeps repeating himself. From that kind of person, this kind of woman, all the way to the black ladies that like to frequent Subway and fast food restaurants and take out their angst on those workers, as well as the white women that do the same thing, but perhaps in a little bit different kind of establishment. Just a different kind of establishment that they frequent. They both act like idiots. And you wonder why. Why? Is they're angry people? Or there's lots of stressful things in their lives? Do they have no reason? Are they evil? I could ask myself the same question. These people, these women I seem to despise, so why do they act like that? It's the interesting thing is that we are most frustrated with someone when we simply don't understand their behavior yet as well as we could. And sometimes we don't want to know why someone acts the way they do, because, you know, there might be some not so great reasons, not so great things we turn up, not so great healthy things about some psychologies or some ways of thinking. But what do women? Why do they act this way? Some women. Well, if aside from the person that gets everything they want to, that's a spoiled brat, and that they think they're really attractive, all that kind of valley girl kind of thing, right? Aside from that kind of person, why do some women act like total idiots in public? And why is coffee so popular? I don't know. Well, that's an easier question to answer, but you know, I think it's a question ultimately that has a lot to do with feminism at some level. But if you don't feel like people respect you because you're physically weaker or more emotionally sensitive, and you try to act more aggressively, you try to act in a way that people take notice of you more. And I'm thinking of women in this case. You know, you might think they might think that vulnerability or that feeling they have they're being run over in life, it maybe might feel more empowered. There's that liberal term again, right? But they don't. But they would keep trying that kind of way of acting. And if they're more of a snobbish person, like the folks that, you know, Matt Stone and Trey Parker like to lampoon on, say, their Yelp off-color, you know, song, and all the other things that I love to lampoon that are liberal. Sometimes they can go the other way, of course, too, with conservatives. But, you know, if they see it, and I don't know, those two guys would know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, it goes without saying. But yeah. But you know, why do they act like that? Why do women act like that? If a guy acts like that, it tends to be a bigger scene. Guys tend to be bigger and stronger and a little bit more dangerous. When we start yelling, it's a different situation. Especially if you're a bigger guy and you have a lot of muscle, people tend to take notice and try to maintain some degree of distance between that person and themselves for obvious reasons. Do these young women that act bratty and snobby and be lampooned sometimes, increasingly so. What are they not having in their life? Why does someone overeat? Why does someone sleep too much? Why do there are underlying reasons why these things happen, and they might vary a bit from person to person, of course. And sometimes I get to a certain point in my thinking, and like, I've got to come back to some safer space, mentally, emotionally, intellectually. I'm getting into this terrain that's, I know there's a lot of truth to what's going on here, but I'm just not ready for it, in a way. So aside from all these issues I'm just kind of hinting at, and believe me, it might sound like I am hinting at literally probably millions of issues here, but life sucks, basically. Some of these women, they just try to put on a face that makes it sound like they're doing great. Whether they have a boyfriend or not, it just depends on the boyfriend, a lot of times. So, or, something like that. So, kind of explaining this on this video helps me understand these kinds of women a little bit better, but the frustrating thing is, again, they don't want you to understand them. All they want to do, this kind of women, they want you to hear their rant. You're not going to have very much success with them until they're calmer, talking to them, and many of them will treat you like a complete stranger. And that's the way they are, and they might wonder why things aren't going so well for them. Well, maybe it's their attitude. So a lot of these women that think that someone's stalking them or a creeper, no. No. Sometimes that might be the case, but I don't need to tell you what to do in some cases, but I really sometimes have a growing distaste, again, from certain kinds of young women. I've hated some types when I was younger. I hate even more types now. And I have to deal with that. No one else can deal with that by myself. I have my reasons. If I see those behaviors, it's just increasingly just a brick wall between myself and that kind of person. I do that for my own sanity. Fortunately, I haven't dated too many of these people. Hardly at all. Maybe a small number. Maybe a few. I'd rather not think about that. But there you go. Me condemning. I'm putting the gavel down. And the truer something is, the more it hurts. But the more maybe it's wise to just do something about it. The question is, what do you do about it? I mean, if you're a stuck-up coffee snob, just get coffee out of the way here. It's not really important. But if you're fake, how do you get out of being fake? Well, you just be for real. Right? If you're vain, how do you stop being vain? Well, you try to have a more humble attitude, try to cry more, try to pray more, hopefully to God. But if you don't want to believe in Christianity, that's fine. But you need to have some kind of emotional release uh, for the real things that are going on inside you. And I keep going down these things, and I know I'm focusing on young women here, but it's young women that seem to kind of get more bottled up about these sorts of things more than many guys. Some guys, they can get bottled up too, but I think guys might just want to go four-wheeling in a truck or something. They're that kind of guy. But I don't know. Everybody's a little different. Or they set up something like a Fight Club, and yes, that beautiful movie Fight Club. Yeah, beautiful but hideous at the same time. But yeah, Fight Club. Oh, it might apply somewhat to how I'm feeling a little bit. Just going with the flow, but you're just as mad as vegetable hockey stick. You're mad as hell. You're not going to take it anymore, right? But you're not going to blow yourself up. Okay, all right. Only some of you, I'm sure, would be aware of this movie. That's okay. So basically, I guess there you go. I'm not really sure what else to say here at this point. But I have to believe that there are still women that I can find something I can be with, can marry. I have to believe that, otherwise it's a very different way of seeing the world. If I don't believe that, I'd rather not even think about being that way. I don't know. But yeah, if you're that kind of woman, don't waste my time. Don't waste your time. Try to be a better woman. Try not to be fake. You're gonna find it's just not the way. It's just not the way to be. At some point, it might be when you're 70. Hopefully, it doesn't take that long. All right, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.